Full time, you're talking money up while it's living in a coal mine. It's all time to call you ma. Hey ma, hey ma.
Alright, so in this video I want to show you some of the plugins that I like using for creating vocal harmonies. So let's start off with my favorite go-to plugin, and that's the Harmony engine from Antares. So very recently they updated the interface, but if you have the older version it sounds exactly the same and works exactly the same way. So let's take a look at how this works. You can switch to a specific fixed interval or scale interval mode, and you can define a particular scale and automatically you can generate these 4 harmonies. But I actually prefer using the chord via MIDI option, reducing the MIDI velocity sensitivity all the way down, and basically feed the plugin MIDI notes, and based on those MIDI notes the plugin will generate the harmonies. And obviously only up to 4, as we only have 4 different voices here. Alright, so I already have some MIDI data here at the bottom, as you can see on this 3rd track. The output is connected to Harmony engine over here. So let's have a listen to this by itself.
Full time, you're talking money up while it's living in a coal mine. It's all time to call you ma. Hey,
You can adjust the octave spread.
it's all fun, you know, you move it up. Well, you want it in your life.
As you can hear, we get this really cool gliding effect.
With light.
You can adjust the register, maybe stay closer towards the lower end.
Full time, you're talking money up while it's living in a coal mine.
You can get a bit muddy like that, but we can also move the register up.
Hey ma, it's all fun, you know, you move it up. Well, you want it in
You have control over each of the 4 voices in terms of volume, panning.
forth with light.
There's this pretty interesting throat control.
Full time, you're talking money up.
Let's solo one of these and hear it.
It's all time to call you ma. Hey ma, it's all fun.
Sounds like a form and shift like effect. So that's what's happening there, and fairly straightforward plugin. There is this choir option that adds this chorusing effect, but I generally don't use that. Alright, so that's Harmony engine from Antares. The next plugin I want to show you that I do tend to use once in a while is iZotope's Nectar. Now this is the older version. There is Nectar 3 available right now. I'm still using Nectar 2. Still works pretty much the same way. Obviously the interface will look a bit different. But currently I'm just using the auto-tune mode here. So I like to do this a lot. So I have another layer of the voice. That 2nd track here. Set the key of the song. And then set the speed to the lowest. So instantly the voice or the notes will be quantized to the correct pitch.
Full time, you're talking money up while it's living in a coal mine.
There's a nice formant control here.
Call you ma.
Hey ma, don't fall, you know you move it up. Oh, you want it in
your life, you're back and forth.
And this is something we can also automate. Alright, so I'm using the auto-tune feature here, but we're talking about creating harmonies. So let's check out the Harmony engine, or Nectar's Harmony engine. Kind of similar to Antares' Harmony engine. You can enable individual voices, and again, depending on the scale that you've set here, it'll create those intervals, major or minor. Now this plugin also has a MIDI control option. So if I enable this, all this stuff is grayed out. We have the 4 different voices, and this is basically your gain level as well as panning. So if I want this to the right, I can pan it there. Want this to the left, I can move it here. So what I'm going to do is on that MIDI track that I had earlier, I'm going to set the output to the 2nd track, which has iZotope Nectar, and on channel 1, let's connect that up. So now the MIDI is going to go into this plugin and we're going to generate harmonies here. Let's have a listen.
Full time, you're talking money up while it's living in a coal mine. It's all time to call you ma. Hey ma.
There's a pitch and delay option. So if I move this to the right, I'm delaying these voices.
Well, you want it in
And you can also detune each voice in sense.
You're back and
Oh, it starts to sound a bit strange.
Full time, you talk your money up while it's living in
I think we can still add some pitch correction. So what I can do here is switch to, I believe it's in B major. Let's find B here. And then crank up the pitch correction amount.
Full time, you talk your money up while it's living in a coal mine. Tall time to call.
Alright, doesn't sound that ideal. It also depends on the notes that you have entered in here. So it's just a matter of fine-tuning some of the selected notes. Alright, so that is using iZotope's Nectar. Another very useful plugin. Has a bunch of other features as well. You can check that out on your own. Now the last one I want to show you here is Kontakt. So what you do here is load in the entire audio into Kontakt, and it'll just basically create an instrument. The mapping editor, make sure it's stretched out across the entire range, or at least almost the entire range. I have it from C-1 all the way up to C8 here. Now the key thing to make this into a harmony generator, we need to switch into tone machine mode here in the source. So by default it might be in sampler mode. We need to switch that to tone machine. Alright, so once you do that, what will happen is that as you play notes on this particular instrument, if I play a note here,
Full time, you talk your money up.
it kind of gets rid of the original pitch, and now you can basically create your own custom harmonies based on the notes that are input here. So no need to connect MIDI from a separate track like here, because this is directly a MIDI track. So what I did earlier was to just copy over that same MIDI data over to this track here, and let's have a listen. Now by default this legato feature might be turned off, and have a listen to what happens when the legato feature is off.
Full time, you talking. Full time, you talking.
So for every new note or every new chord that's entered, Kontakt will restart the playback of the sample. Now we don't want that to happen, so turn on legato. So as long as the notes that are played are legato, meaning there aren't any gaps between notes, it'll just continue through the entire sample. So if you look at the wave editor here, this is the entire performance here, 25-30 second long performance. And as long as the notes are played in a legato fashion, Kontakt will go through the entire sample. Let's have a listen to that now.
Full time, you talk your money up while it's living in a coal mine. Tall time.
This also has a formant control.
Hey ma, don't fall, you know.
You mop it up, or you want it in your life. You're back and forth with light.
Now all this, you're noticing some artifacts and strange tonality in the voice. It really depends on the notes that you're inputting and also the register of the notes. So you just have to experiment with your vocal track. Alright, so that's a quick look at some of the plugins that I use to create harmonies. Hope you enjoyed this and stay tuned for more tutorials.